Virtual Sustainability and Resiliency Task Force Board meeting to order at 3:34 p.m. And today is Wednesday, December 2nd. We'll jump right into silent meditation and the pledge.
Bring that up.
Perfect. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America
and
and
to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, give me a second here to stop the share and come back to my agenda.
Okay, Mayor Nickerson, I'm sorry, if you wouldn't mind doing the roll call for today.
No problem. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Roll call. Member McLean.
Here.
Thank you. Member Kirk.
Present.
Thank you. Vice Chair Fruitstone.
Present.
Thank you very much. And Madam Chair Carpenter.
Present.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, you do have a quorum. Madam Chair, for the record, we also have Hugh Gladwin, which acts as more or less a consultant to the task force. We'll bring him over soon.
Great, thank you. And for the record, Member Valencia is not present at this meeting.
Yes, for the record, Member Valencia is not present. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, great. We'll jump right down to the approval of the agenda. Oh, let me bring Hugh over as a participant. Let's see here. Give me 1 second, guys. I actually don't have that capability. I don't know if anybody else does.
I don't either. Kyle, could you bring over Mr. Gladwin? Kyle put us in timeout today.
Oh, here we go. I'm a co-host now.
Are you? Okay, okay.
Right. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you, Kyle.
You were promoted.
Yes, I was promoted, exactly. Okay, wonderful. So we have Mr. Gladwin over here, and let's jump right into approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any changes to the agenda?
I have two questions as to whether we should add something on COVID based on emails from the chief and his upcoming concerns, and whether we wanted to have anything on the fertilizer ordinance or just a quick update in the action items.
So we can do a quick update on the fertilizer ordinance and the action items,
okay.
And then why don't we go ahead and add add COVID to new business?
Okay.
Okay, and hang on 1 second. Unfinished business. Okay, fertilizer. Any other changes?
Yeah, Madam Chair. Can we please add ethics training to unfinished business? So we have the unfinished business, which you guys do all the time, but I added the review and update of the notes and open items by Member Kirk. You usually, Madam Chair, ask him for that towards the end of the meeting. You're like, yes. Okay, where are we at? So since we do that every time, it should be official. So I put that there as a general order at the end of the meeting that we usually do. We can also, so that would be I1. So for I2, I think we already said we had unfinished business, right? Which was the
yes. The fertilizer update, and then we'll as I2, and then we'll do ethics training as I3. Okay. And then new business will be the COVID discussion. Thank you for adding that, Mayor Nickerson, and Member Kirk for always keeping us updated on the open items and reminding me to keep us updated on the open items. Any other changes? Okay, can I get, so I would need a motion to add fertilizer update and ethics training to unfinished business and COVID to new business.
So I will make a motion to add all those items to the agenda, COVID and the village update, and am I missing anything?
Fertilizer update,
fertilizer update, ethics training, and the COVID.
Perfect, can I get a second? Thank you, Member Kirk. All those in favor of adopting the updated agenda as just stated, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes. Agenda is updated. And then move. Yes, Mayor Nickerson. Yes, please.
For the for the COVID, you guys are putting that under
New business.
New business.
Yeah, it's new business.
For the, there was something else going under agenda items, correct?
No, so unfinished business, we have I1 is what you added, I2 is the fertilizer update, and I3 is ethics training.
No problem, just making sure.
Oh.
Thank you very much. I thought we had something under agenda items. We're good? Agenda items stay the same?
Stay the
The
same.
agenda items stay the same.
Okay, thank you very much. No problem.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to agenda item E, approval of minutes from last meeting. Does anybody have any changes to Member Kirk's minutes taken at our last task force meeting?
Nope.
No?
Nope.
No. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I motion to approve the minutes from last
Second.
month's meeting. Yep.
Okay, hearing a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the last meeting's minutes, say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Moving down to agenda item F, Mayor Nickerson, do we have any special visitors or acknowledgements, or is that built into the agenda?
We do not today. We don't have any special visitors or acknowledgements. Everything
Okay.
is us today.
It's built in. Perfect. Thank you so much, Mayor Nickerson. We'll open it up to good and welfare. I think we just have Mr. Gladman on the line. So Mr. Gladman, anything for good and welfare? No? Okay, great. Moving into agenda item H, H1, approval of bylaws previously named the charter.
Yes, Madam Chair, if I may. So you guys, last time we spoke, we talked about how I'm going to take the charter per Attorney Geller. He felt that the name charter should change to bylaws, which I spoke to you guys about last time. I'm going to take this to the December meeting, full council meeting, to get these passed by the council, so that in the future, even if I'm not here with you guys or anything like that, that you guys will have this stuff set in stone, so nobody will be able to, mess around with the way you guys, fulfill, do your operate and fill your seats and things like that. I just wanted to, before I took it to the full council, I wanted to pass it here. I want to just make sure it's okay with you guys and pass it here, that it's being changed from the word charter to bylaws. Exactly what Member Kirk gave me is exactly what I had for the agenda today. I just wanted to make sure that it's okay with you guys and have a vote on that to make sure that it's okay to change that that word. That's all, from charter to bylaws.
So the only change from the last version is the change in the language between charter and bylaws, right? Everything else is the same. Vacancy is the same. Everything else is the same.
If I may, Madam Chair, may I respond to that?
Yes,
Okay,
please.
so Kristen, or Member McLean, sorry. So I added a document modification section, which I use to keep track of the changes on a lot of the documents. So I updated charter to bylaws. I updated the background and the overview to include the subsequent resolution that Omar referred, the Mayor Nickerson referred to, and then I just added that section. But content-wise, as far as how we operate, nothing changed. My only question on this is at the very end, I guess today it wouldn't matter because Member Valencia is not with us, but we do have the 4 in section 8, the bylaw approval. We have the 4 members who are present today as concurring on this. I don't know, do we need to change the bylaw approval to today's date? Do we, like, in section 8 at the very bottom?
I mean, we could do something like, because I just want the language to be something like how the charter was approved at the original date, and this was just, a change of terminology from charter to bylaws, and that's the reason for the vote.
Okay, I'm gonna share this screen, and you guys are gonna tell me what to write here.
Thank you, Member Kirk. I was trying to pull it up as well. Thank you.
Hopefully everybody can see.
Yes.
Okay. These bylaws are, I guess we could say, previously as a charter.
Do we need to We already have a note saying that they were previously a charter and has been updated to a bylaw. So, I mean, do we even need to reference the previous approval if we're reapproving them now?
I don't know, and I will put in here whatever you guys want. I don't know how most appropriately this is phrased.
Madam Chair, you're referring to the beginning of the top part where we changed that last time. Yeah, I mean, that in my opinion, should be enough, but if you guys wanted to write something here also, we can, but we don't have to.
I think I mean, just off the top of my head, the only reason I would think that we would put both is if there was ever an issue looking back, whether we violated the charter, you would want to know what the charter looked like from the date of previous October 7th until today. It was slightly
for more
different.
Transparency.
Yeah, if
that
we
it's
could do that
reiterated again at the, okay.
Exactly, just to, if anything ever happens and we have to look back to see what we were bound by, we can look at the date of the incident, for lack of a better word, and see what version exactly we were working with.
Yeah, absolutely, Madam Chair. I just want to make I just want to make it so that you guys are covered. That's my number one thing. I want to make it so you guys are covered and nobody can ever come in and mess with you guys. So I really do want to make it known that, even though we were passing the bylaws, quote unquote, here on December the 2nd, that everything we've ever done and voted on previously when it was a charter is still set in stone, was still legal, is still viable, is still alive. So we have to put that here, just to add a couple more sentences. I think that should be no harm for us. Just add it just to make sure, better be safe and stuff.
I don't know if you guys can see what I have, and feel free to tell me that it sounds stupid.
I think we just need to say a previous version of this because we changed it slightly. It's not the way it reads right now. It says that it was exactly the same. We just called it a charter. But if we say a previous version of this document, I would say a previous version of this document was approved as a charter on October 7th, 2020 by the El Patel Sustainability and Resiliency Task Force. Yeah.
But I would be careful about previous version because that might infer that we've changed something as far as the body. Like there was another version. This is a new version. Because we haven't changed the body, we're just changing the wording from charter to bylaws, no?
Well, we made a few small changes, right? Just in the background section.
Yes, we did identify different details on the village. What are they called? Not motions. Village. My brain is failing me.
Well, a previous version of what if we say a previous version of this document entitled as a charter was approved on October 7th, 2020.
That's perfect.
Say that again. A previous version of this document
entitled as a charter was approved on October 7th, 2020. Previous version of this. Titled, not entitled. So a previous, I put a comma after document and then after charter. Does that, Mayor Nickerson, does that help with any of your concerns?
Perfect. If you guys are good with it, I'm good with it.
I'm going to defer to the lawyer. It's not my area of expertise.
I'm good with it.
Okay. And on that same kind of topic, Mayor Nickerson, do we? I know Attorney Geller pointed out the bylaws charter distinction that that we didn't want it to conflict. But did he take a look at the substance of this? And do we need him to take a look at the substance of this?
So I sent it to him. He took a look at the substance. He really didn't have any problems with it. He said that as long as the council has no problems with it, then he'll go with whatever the council feels. So as long as it's passed by the council, he has no problems with it. He said it's up to the council at the end of the day to because the council created the task force to say what powers the task force can or cannot have, or what, the way they run their task force. Ultimately, it's up to the council, he said. So as long as it's approved by the council, then you guys will be set to go. It'll be set in stone forever after that. So.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, are we good then?
Yes, do we need a motion?
We do. I think we need a full roll call on this too, right, Mayor Nickerson?
Roll call, okay. Madam Chair, yes.
Okay, no other changes from anyone? No? Okay, so can I get a motion and we'll have Mayor Nickerson do a roll call?
I move that we approve the bylaws as currently presented.
I'll second.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You have a motion by Member Kirk. You have a second by Member Fruitstone. Roll call. Member Kirk.
Yes.
Member McLean.
Yes.
Vice Chair Fruitstone.
Yes.
Chairperson Carpenter.
Yes.
Madam Carpenter, Member Valencia is not here. She's absent for today. Chair Carpenter, you have a 4-0 approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will send that version, Mr. Mayor, to you with my notes, etc. when we're done.
Thank you very much, Member Kirk. Appreciate it, my brother.
Okay, perfect. All right, that takes care of H1. Let's move on to H2, which is a text notification service, which we may have to defer to the next meeting unless anybody else has any other updates.
Not so. I just received an approval to receive municipality texts from El Portal.
Me too.
Yeah.
So,
sorry. So, okay, hold on.
Aha.
Very good, Member Kirk. Very good. Looking good.
All right. So let's be honest here. That's because I don't have your cell phone number. I don't have your cell phone number. So anyway.
It's right there.
So just in full disclosure, the reason why it didn't work last time is because I was on a freebie trial and you have to verify each phone number individually. So this time I paid the $20 and whatever, just to make sure it worked perfectly. But if I can just take 2 seconds to redo kind of what I showed last week to show that it actually does work. Again, Member Valencia may come back and have a better solution. I think this one is very economical and we can tweak to work the way we want it and make it simple, and it can be used whether it's for flooding or hurricane stuff or fires or
it was
COVID
awesome. I was like,
or whatever. So if I'm going to, let me just share my screen again. Sorry, I will share. Hey, share screen. I'm going to share, and I apologize for this. But okay, so I've hidden people's personal emails and cell phone numbers, but they are here. If you want to add somebody, you can simply go and do a new one and add the stuff in, and they will get a welcome text like everybody got. But if people do not have text and have email, that's fine too. You can either do a notice, again here, I'm just gonna say new notice, water, it's rising. Okay, and I can say it's a flooding if I want to. Now,
I like that it has an attachment option, just because then you could include, FEMA information or county information or whatever. Yeah.
Yep. So just so you know, that is when we use the list and we can see whether or not it has run. I know this is nerdy and nobody cares. And a week ago it failed because of course people didn't have, last time we met it failed. It goes off every minute from here. So and it failed again.
Hey, I got it.
Let's see why it failed. Woo! Probably.
I got it.
I got a text. Did everybody
yeah, water, it's right.
Yep, and then hopefully you should have gotten something in your emails.
I got
Maybe that
the
failed.
I got the text. I'm checking the email.
I'm checking the email now.
I don't know if maybe the email's what failed. I can look at that later.
No, it dropped in. They both dropped in the top under Microsoft Power Apps.
Oh yeah,
And
Microsoft Power Apps.
And again, the only reason that's coming in that way is because I'm using mine versus like the
Village
villages.
would be using their 365.
Right. So we can see, send a text message. That was fine. Next failed. Who's failed? That is probably we'll have to figure out.
Yeah, I saw the second one there.
Yep. So one person's failed, two people's failed. Probably because I've written it poorly. And if you don't have a cell phone number, you may not get the email. Chair Carpenter, did you get an email or no?
I did not.
Okay. So my guess is that's how poorly I've written it. But that's just, testing and coding and all that stuff. But fundamentally, it allows us to do what we would want. And cost-wise, it's, as I said, it's about a penny per text. And so that was what, 4 cents, one to Omar, no, 5 cents, because I got one as well, or I got two, depending on how many different users I have. But just as an option, that is something we can do. That's all I really wanted to add there. Let me stop sharing. That's all I wanted to add. But again, I know that Sandra was going to talk to the mayor and manager, and I don't know whether she's had a chance to do that or not. So I don't have any update on that. I'll shut up now.
Okay. Thank you, Member Kirk. That was really helpful. I do think we probably can't make any decisions on those, or recommendations, I should say, not decisions, before we have Sandra back on and update update us on the conversation with the village. Okay, awesome. But that's great to know that functions.
Yeah. But I will say for the record, I appreciate the expediency and directness of this. Like, don't have to buy anything. It's already ready to roll. Like that.
Yeah.
That thank you, Courtney, for running a successful
experiment. Nerd power.
I agree.
Activate.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, please, Mayor Nickerson.
Madam Chair, I would like to know, I don't know how long the chief has been on, but the chief, they're used to sending out, alerts and stuff, via Twitter and things like that. So this would be something that they would be using more than probably a lot of others in the village. So Chief, seeing this, how do you think about it? Like, what do you think about it?
I think it's a great idea. It cuts, I think Ms. McLean basically said, it basically cuts right to the chase. It's right up, everybody carries a phone. I think it would work fine. It's a great idea. Twitter works, the other things work too, but you have to be sort of glued to a computer, or at least get an alert that it's coming. Everybody looks down at their phone when it goes off on a text. It's a great idea. And by the way, Mr. Kirk, I like the beard.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, is there something though? I feel as though we are late to the table on this. There has to be something that's already in existence that's may have been created, maybe through the League of Cities, that you might be finding out about, Omar.
I'll ask, but I mean, I can ask, but right now,
like if they all go in on some kind of, instead of it coming out of each and every municipality's budget, or is there something, government-wise that's been offered, or through the county, right? Because we're not a city of Miami, we're county.
Well, they do have certain things, but they're more like overall things as far as like county-wide things. I think we were trying to develop something that was more geared towards El Patrón.
Yeah.
Right? Because they do have county stuff, but it's more just like, National Weather Center information and things like that. We're trying to say, like, 86th Street is underwater. You guys be careful. We're trying to do one of those type of things. So it's different.
Yeah, I like that if we keep this kind of like in the family, in the village, we're able to really, drill down on specific areas, specific residents, and address the more detailed needs of residents.
Yeah,
as opposed to. Go ahead. Sorry.
I absolutely agree with that and making it more personal to the village of El Portal. But right now it is the balance with our budget and the cost effectiveness of this, because if we do make it a personal thing, then it's going to cost us money. So I was looking at free first and start to gather information and see if it could be transferred into our own one to give us more time. But at least this could be something to be rolled out like, hey, this is 2021 and we have this great thing, sign up for it. This is your alert. And then we can continue to find something that we can recommend and create on our own. Cause I was looking for grants, and there has to be something that we can apply for, get monies for it or create. But this again would be like, it was instantaneous.
Mm-hmm.
I guess one of the questions would also, sorry.
Or do we want to have that time and not introduce it? I think it would be something positive for the village. We had, like the big thing, and I was one of the people that was making the big stink about the cell phone. Like the police had a cell phone and everybody loved the cell phone. And then when they took it away, they're like, what are you doing? You're taking the cell phone away.
But there was a reason. There was a reason behind that, and there was.
No, I know.
Okay.
I have since I'm at peace with not having a cell
Okay.
phone. But I feel like this is another way of bringing the village close knit again. Right now, everybody's scattered because of COVID. So if we could have something like in place sooner, I think it's just my opinion. I think it would really start to we have a whole bunch of new residents that we could start to just collect their stuff immediately. And then I don't know. I'm rushing to it, but the only reason why is because I really feel that it's going to bring a lot of positivity back into the village. And that's why I was seeking something sooner than waiting to create something. That's all.
Mr. Gladwin, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think, we heard from the mayor, Omar, last week or last time that the website for the village is being revamped. And I kind of feel like one problem in communication is just the website is very difficult to access, very slow. So I guess my preference would be to wait and see how that goes and see what needs it fills. Because I think adding another communication system would duplicate that. And in the meantime, I think what we really need is, what Courtney's proposed is a kind of direct cut to the chase emergency, essential communication system. So that's my thought.
Thank you, Mr. Gladwin. I would add too, I think that some of the, in terms of cost sharing that Vice Chair Fruitstone was bringing up, I think that the plans that Member Valencia was showing us were something like $300 a year for unlimited, very large amount. So I'm not sure that it's a huge expense at this level, but I also love, Vice Chair Fruitstone, what you proposed about an app, that would allow you to do lots of government functions. And I'm sure that would be much more burdensome from a financial perspective for the village, but maybe that's something that we can do down the road.
And most of those apps require you to have systems in place at the village. To be honest, we don't have those. We have older systems that are much more manual. So I don't know how much of an advantage we could take versus an organization as vast and, I don't want to say wealthy, but deep pocketed as Miami-Dade County or City of Miami, where, okay, we spend $30 million on our IT, who cares? Well, we spend $350 and we all start, where are we getting that money? Where's it coming from? So I think some of these are what we'd like to have versus what would be reasonable given our small size.
Okay, go ahead, Mayor Nickerson. Go ahead.
So I think that, what Hugh said is good, but I also think that, for no matter how good the website comes out, people don't have it in their daily routine to go to the El Patel website. Like the website could be, you know, better than the Apple, you know, better than any website, but people just don't have it in their daily routine, like, you know, drink coffee and then take a shower and go to the El Patel website. Your phone is always there, right? So when that text pops up in your phone and you hear that bling or whatever it is, or the vibrate or whatever it is, it's right there. You can't deny it. And that's why I think what member Kurt came up with this is so great. Let me also say for member Vice Chair Fruitstone, that I'll look and I'll ask about, you know, the county. The thing about this with the county, it's kind of like the fight that I'm having with them right now about Northeast 2nd and sewer, trying to, you know, get things like that, because if we can get sewer on Northeast 2nd, we'll get some businesses in. A lot of businesses have called me. I had 2 meetings last week with businesses, me and the village manager. And the first question was, how many residents do you have and what's your permit process? And the second question was, do you guys have sewage or septic on? And so, but I just wanted to bring that up just to say that when I reached out to the county, what the county continues to say to me is, how does it benefit others in the county? And that's the way they're looking at things. So if we're going to do something for just us, they're looking at it like, well, it benefits just you guys. So, hey, and that's the fight that we have. So I don't know if you can give us any funding for that. What I will say, and I'll end it with this, is that you guys remember we had Robert Wuano on here, which is the grant writer. So if you want to, Vice Chair, reach out to him in an email, just CC me, reach out to him and say, hey, you know, this is what we're talking about. You know, this is what we're looking into, kind of explaining in the email and say, have you heard of any grants about this? So
I'm writing it down.
About how many residents do we have that we figure would sign up for this?
Well, I mean, I don't know, Hugh might know, but you know, anybody, I'd like to know the volume of houses that are along, say, 86th and 87th, just as a start.
Yeah, that would be the most important.
And estimate 2 numbers per house to give us a benchmark, you know? So
how many homes do we have? About 800 or 1,000, somewhere in that number? So let's say we've got 2,000 phone numbers.
Right. 2 numbers per house, right? Yeah.
That means every text costs $20. All right. Now, that's if you're sending it to everybody. If you're doing a more targeted text, hey, we're only sending it to the 100 houses on 86th and 85th or whatever it is. Obviously, that's $1, you know, so it's a lot cheaper, or $2, I guess, if we say 2 per house.
Yeah, I think that's where, you know, Member Valencia's discussions with the village becomes really important about what they need. How often are we going to need to be sending this messages? What topics, you know, and I think we can't really budget until we have that information.
Completely agree, but we can also determine that there are some that need to be texts and others that could be emails. You know, if we say, hey, the water's coming up, we want to text somebody so that they really react. If the village wants to send out something that says, oh, by the way, there's a town hall meeting next Saturday that we'd like you to come to, maybe we say we don't want to spend the money for that. And again, to your point, Madam Chair, that's really more up to the village than it is to us. And I'm sorry, Chief, I saw your hand up, but I just felt like talking again.
No, that's fine. One thing, I think where you need to get out the word quickly, you're right on point here. You do it through the texting. My concern, and I'm just putting it out there, if you're putting out something because it's a potential emergency, you may want to consider making sure everybody gets that message, because if something happens to somebody you didn't choose to send it to, or there's damage, I don't know what their response may be. I think if it's an emergency or something that could be an emergency, obviously there's certain areas that would be more affected than others, just from my thinking. And I would say this is also a great tool if, let's say, if there's a lockdown because there's a armed robber on the loose and it's over by the footbridge, I would still put it out to everybody that is signed up.
Yeah.
Because
I agree
if
with
something happens and they go somewhere else, well, why wasn't I warned? And I just want to put that out there for discussion. That was it. But on the other thing, like the village hall meeting, you're right. That I don't think you need to spend it. That's my opinion. There's other ways to do that, and it's worked in the past. But anything emergency related or something that needs to grab somebody's attention needs to grab everybody's attention if they're on that list. My thoughts. That's all.
Thank you, Chief. I would second your thoughts. I don't think that in a village as small as we are, we should be necessarily having the village decide those very distinct lines from one block to the other in terms of, you know, emergency issues or storm issues. I don't know if that would create additional liability for the village to have the village selecting which streets are getting notices and which streets are not getting notices. It's probably, I agree with you, it's probably best practice just to
Send it to everybody.
Send it to everyone, exactly.
Yeah, because you don't know if somebody's going to go over there. You know, that, you know, we had on my street, we had a lovely resident that was holding a girlfriend hostage, or holding her, and I'm sure Omar and Kristen remember. Yeah. And, you know, the only way that residents, we were doing is through Crime Watch, because the whole street was closed down by SWAT. And they're like, sorry, we don't know. Just go somewhere else. We don't know when it's going to be done. But if we would have had that emergency, what we're kind of like, what do I do? How do I know? You know, how do I know when I can go back into my house? And had we had the emergency system in place to text, you could say, oh, it's done now. You can go to your house. You know, but that would be for the safety of everyone else too. Like, by the way, don't go here.
I think I'm losing a little bit of internet. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, you're a little choppy.
I added too that it also can quell rumors, whether they're storm related, crime related. You put out from one general area the facts. That doesn't have to be a whole expose per se, but just the facts of what's going on. This is what we know right now, and hopefully, you know, that would suffice.
Yeah. So we really need to check out how many. We have to look and have, you know, member Valencia speak to, because it has to be budgeted. It has to be put or moved if we're going to use it this year, this fiscal year. It has to be allocated and all that stuff. So you have to, I guess, get a guesstimation of how many times you're going to really want to use it. We have the same thing with schools when they call your house. So through the Connect Ed, the school system calls your house, and it's a cost to the school every time that they do that. So it's the same thing.
Hey guys, I'm not sure where we are.
We're just finishing up H2, still on.
Okay, I think we should, if possible, if everyone's done with this, I'd like to keep going because we have a lot of stuff to cover. And we're not,
we're done.
Not resolving this one today. Okay, great. So let's move on to H3, Ada flooding report. Mayor Nickerson, was this something we wanted to discuss with Mr. Gladwin, or just a general topic?
This was something that Mr. Gladwin reached out to me and about this, and then the LMS funding, he wanted to come after this, even though we had LMS funding update already, but he wanted to come after the H3. He said H3 should come first. So this is Mr. Gladwin and Member McLean. This is a joint effort with them too. So.
Okay, perfect. Mr. Gladwin, I will give you the floor.
Okay. And can you also give me a screen share? Or
you should be able to do that.
Let me just see. Oh, okay. I never can. Shoot. I always have these things here, and I never know which one is which.
As a side, I like how Member McLean's matches her hair with her little. It's like an extension.
Intentional. Completely
yes, it totally works.
So are you seeing anything?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay. So you see what we learned from Ada flooding?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, the reason I did this was primarily because we have meetings coming up about grant funding and the LMS, including one meeting tomorrow with the with the mayor and the village manager, and I think you, police chief, and our engineering consultants and so on. So, you know, we need to see if what we learned from Ada and what application it has. And this has kind of been in progress. You know, so I'm going to like just splash through some key points. But another thing that happened was today was the LMS quarterly meeting, which I just found out about at the very last minute, sort of panicked. But in the course of a very long, boring 2-hour meeting, there were some interesting things that came up that affect, you know, what's going forward for the LMS. First off, the link is up here at the top. You probably can't see my cursor, I don't know, but
we can.
Yeah, so you can look at that at later because there's a lot of things that I won't have time to say much about. But the main thing is, you know, the first thing was, okay, we did, the Little River Conservancy did a report at the beginning of summer, which went to the village, you know, and we've all reviewed that, and some of it's been incorporated in the village's plans. But that report also, you know, included an analysis of our flooding situation. And then since then, I've been monitoring, putting up on our weather page and so on. So first question about Ada was, you know, did what happened give evidence that that report was correct? And the answer is basically yes. You know, and that's summarized in this first section here. You know, the basic thing in that report, and if you haven't read it or haven't updated on it, I suggest you go over here and do that. The first 2 pages of it. But the basic thing in the report is that first, when we have a flood situation, the water in the river can rise really fast, but it takes forever to go down. And that has to do with the fact that the tide level in Biscayne Bay is 3 feet, which is also the flood level in the village. You know, this all has to do with how the Water Management District has to deal with a situation of flooding and slowly get the river level down. So that's all in that report. The second thing is, not only does water in the river fill up really fast and take forever to go out, but when the water in the river goes up and we have rain, water goes through the aquifer, the limestone that El Patel sits on, out from the river into the village. So if the river goes up to 3 feet, the water table in the village goes up to 3 feet, which means if we, you know, we have rain on top of that, we get to have what we're calling nuisance flooding, but for a lot of people, it isn't just nuisance, very quickly. And unfortunately, that doesn't go back out fast. It's also fast in, slow out. And part of the reason is simply that the river takes so long to lower, and the current river is very insufficient for doing that. You know, over on this side, you know, we got a lot of wonderful information from the police department, photographs people sent. I'm not going to go through all that. But one key thing I did was at one particular time when I knew the exact level of the river, I zoomed around the village and took photos at locations where I have the precise elevation measured. You know, so that's all there. It will hopefully be of use to engineers or folks in the meeting tomorrow. So anyway, I did just want to quickly show a picture of the only resident whose picture wound up here. I believe that's a resident that lives at your house, Elizabeth.
No, I was going to say that I think that's right next to me.
Oh, next to you.
Poor
Yeah.
cat. Poor cat.
I was running around. Okay, so quickly, problems that we did not anticipate. The first one is, you know, the water. We said the water goes quickly from the river through the aquifer, but it's amazing that it's just about instantaneous. I mean, I was able to measure it going out the day I went around, but from reports in the area west of Northeast 2nd Avenue, you know, the flood areas are right near the river. If we can see this picture here, these are kind of the, I think, 3-foot area, you know, so even over here where Sandra Valencia lives, you know, the water just shoots in really fast. And this creates a situation very different from across the river where there's a huge area that, you know, is very low where they have pumps to pump it down. But that's a lot of that's many blocks inland. So the county is able to pump the water down. Our problem is water shoots in the area that floods, and you got to like look down 2 feet below the surface to see septic problems and things. So it's about 800,000 square feet times 2 is a heck of a lot of water, which means that even though we have pumps, 2 pumps in our LMS proposal and they're big pumps, they're not going to be enough by itself. So that's going to be an issue. Point 3, I haven't written much about, but it is, but we had a lot of discussion when this was going on, and it is very much the big problem we're facing with this, because, you know, by and large, the flooding we had was just nuisance flooding. But what it made it bad for so many people was that with that amount of flooding, many homes with septic systems had their septic drain fields in the water. And when that happens, even if the septic system is functioning perfectly, you know, a septic system has to be in moist but dry soil for it to work. You know, I forget what the rules are, but you know, it fills up with water, the system stops working, but even worse, the water that goes to the surface is very contaminated. And because the water moves through the aquifer so fast, it's not just contamination at that location, it's contamination everywhere this is happening, everywhere water is coming up in the streets. So that's a huge problem, because the remedy is putting in sewer systems, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. You know, so we have to think about this, and I think in the next part, Kristen is going to talk about it a little bit. I kind of hope that the LMS and the county does have something called recurring flood losses, and they actually announced at the meeting that they'll be asking the village and all other municipalities for a report on that in the next few days. But my understanding is that's for a situation where your home becomes unlivable. So I don't know what we're going to do about this. Finally, there's a problem in Sherwood Forest. I mean, the map I showed you here is 3 feet elevation, I believe. But in the Sherwood Forest Park area, the ground level of Elizabeth's neighbor's cat house was 4 feet. So the flooding in Sherwood Forest was 4 feet instead of 3, And when the water level in the river started back down again, that water stayed. I mean, 2 times Officer Patel went around and it was there for ages afterwards.
Yeah, and my I think my neighbors had similar situations, but the water, even when the water in the front yard was gone, there was still water in the back.
Yeah, and the situation actually, I'd love to talk about it more because it's a fascinating situation. It's described in the handout for the Little River cleanup, but I believe basically the situation is, oh, and I guess I didn't even put this picture there, so yeah. Okay, so this is 1924, 2 years before the canal was dug. So this is Sherwood Forest right here. El Patel was just beginning. This whole area, and the references are in the handout we did this spring, but this whole area was what was called a peat transverse glade. It was the furthest east extension of the Everglades, right up here to almost to northeast 2nd Avenue. And the bottom of this basin was much higher than it was today. It was probably like 4 or 5 feet above sea level, but it was peat. But what went on was this was part of the Everglades. The purple is low elevation. Right here, you had this kind of barrier of higher ground. And at that point was where the Little River started. That's why it's called Little River. It only started right here and went down to the bay. So the Little River, the elevation of the water here was about 6 feet, maybe more in rainy season. And from here, it dropped 5 feet down to Biscayne Bay through rapids. But it also turns out that there was a spring. You know, all this water was sitting up here. It wanted to push down the river, but it also pushed out through springs. And it turns out in the 1850s, there was a big spring right here, right where you live, Elizabeth, maybe in your backyard. And there was a Kunti mill that was driven by the water flow. And then that water went down to here. And if you look at actually the original El Patel map, you'll see the location of the boiling springs here where they come out. So my sort of theory is that what we have now is that spring is still there. And it's basically siphoning water with contamination, unfortunately, out into this area. And then it has to go down underground through the aquifer here. And I know some of this because I've actually lived in 3 different houses in Sherwood Forest for the last almost 40 years. And when you're right here, when we have high water here and low water in the river, you can hear the water just roaring out through the springs. So I'm going into this in some detail because it is a major problem, but I think it would be easily remedied by some kind of storm drain that would just basically take this water out, put it into the aquifer flow. You know, the problem is just convincing the engineers that this isn't Hugh Gladwin's crazy theory, but
I would second the storm drain recommendation. There's, in the area where I am with the houses, there's just no drain.
Yeah.
There's nowhere for it to go.
Yeah. So that's an issue. So I have a minute left by my timetable here, but as far as solutions go, the first thing is also in the report we did before, please read the end of it, fixing El Patel's flood problem. That is really, really important because those are the major issues that have been going on. As Kristen has been saying, the the Biscayne Bay issues have tremendously accelerated kind of a focus on the C7 basin. You know, if you look at that thing I just showed you, the C7 basin was supposed to be the next big item to get fixed. And there's never been any money for it, but we got two big clues in the last 2 days that they're going to start moving on it, and we really have to be part of the process. One clue was in the meeting today. They did a session that went over various ongoing grant things, the regular LMS and other programs. I was pleased to notice that in a ranking of priority programs in terms of the biggest budget items, we're like third now. Not that there are other ones ahead of us, but if they get a big chunk of money, at some point, I think we're going to be in line to get those pumps, and they're going to be critical. But also, part of the deal is replacing the S27 structure with big pumps. If that happens, a lot of the problem with the river will be alleviated. You know, I know we'll still need pumps here, but it wasn't clear how that was happening. But there is this program called BRIC, and when they reported that on that, and it turns out there is a really big $30 million budget item in there for the C7. You know, and I've been hearing from Katie Hageman at the county that that's going on, but it's absolutely critical that what we do in our pumps, and I don't have time to explain, but I think we're going to have to put in some flood areas a very limited type of seawall, basically to keep the underwater flow of water going out. So we have to really be on board with that process. You know, and the final thing is, I mean, this is like huge and long term. I mean, Sandra Valencia's presentation last week really hit me, you know, because I've been involved, like Elizabeth, I've been involved like 20 years in this stuff. But, you know, the picture of it is huge. And to see everything water supply linked again is critical. But one very important thing that's happening is this meeting on December 9th of the Water Management District Governing Board. And they, you know, they're calling the meeting because of pressure of Biscayne Bay pollution. But they're going to be, you know, conditioned water of Biscayne Bay, including the urbanized watershed, i.e. the C7 basin. This will include discussion of programs and projects that are designed to improve the condition and function of those systems. You know, and we don't know what's been going on in the district. There's been an enormous change. You know, evidence of that is the fact that our two pumps got put in our LMS thing at a time, you know, when Patel was collaborating with the county and the Water Management District very much in this C7 planning process. And this is the last thing I'll say, but I was astounded when our engineering company brought to the Patel Planning and Zoning meeting, Obi is what we call him, the top modeler at the time for the Water Management District, who was leading the district side of all this planning process. You know, so he came and explained why it was critical to get those pumps in as part of the process. But the thing is, you know, we're at the drain end of the Little River. Everything that happens upstream affects us. You know, the deal then was we put in these pumps, we get funded. It takes a big chunk of money. but the benefit is huge upstream and downstream. But it only works for us if we're part of this whole political and everything process going forward. So enough ranting and raving. Any questions, or we could go to Kristen and she'll take it to the.
So, Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, please.
So Hugh, that meeting, it was December 8th. What you said, December 8th, right?
The
December
governing
9th?
board. It's December 9th at 1 o'clock.
At 1 o'clock p. Is it a Zoom meeting?
It's a Zoom meeting. What happens is the district, this is like their governing body. So they're like a very powerful, I mean, Elizabeth can probably explain more. I used to go to a lot of their meetings and things back when I worked on Everglades stuff myself. But, you know, what they do is they'll have a workshop. So it's like a public workshop. So people
is the workshop open, Elizabeth, to the public, or?
Yes. So I already have this on my calendar, and I can attend on behalf of the task force. They have their governing board meeting on the Thursday, and before every governing board meeting, they do a workshop where the staff essentially teaches the governing board about a pressing issue, and the public is welcome to attend. And I'm not sure whether I think they usually have a public comment period, but I'm not sure. It's really about, it's a workshop for the governing board that members of the public can sit in on. Mm-hmm. Does that seem right, Mr. Gladwin? Was that a good summary?
Yeah. I never, you know, like at all the meetings I've been in the past, I was just there as a member of the public. I mean, kind of an interested researcher, but, you know, people from organizations like yours, I think register, you know, and they can submit questions ahead of time. But, you know, the public, I mean, I think all of you, if you can, should sit in because it's tremendously educational. And also, if you read the things that have been discussed in our previous report and things like that, they're going to be talking about, you know, essentially strategies, I think, going forward to deal with sea level rise, which means, you know, the river will drain more and more poorly, you know, and we're going to get more and more problems here in our end than anybody else. I mean, if you go to our old report, there's kind of a horrifying picture that I animated of what's going to happen to flooding in El Patel with 2 feet of sea level rise, or 1.5, I don't know. So it's really important.
Okay. Yeah, I'll put it in my thing. So as long as I go to the South Florida Water Management District website, like, because there it says that a link will be provided on the district website.
Right. Right now, yeah, if you go, the link is right here.
Yeah,
and it will come up, I think. It's not here yet, but, you know, it will be here. I don't know, I had it before.
What were you going to say, Madam Chair?
Yeah, if you see Mr. Gladwin is in the news and meeting section, and that usually has a drop down for a calendar, and you can see what meetings the district is having, and it should be on there.
Okay.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Yeah, maybe before it happens, next week we could send out more information. Just to, I was gonna.
And on that same, just really quick, while we're on the topic of Biscayne Bay, we received an email from an environmental group asking us to pass a resolution about the health of Biscayne Bay, and we weren't really sure the premise for it, where the group is coming from. So I scheduled a meeting with that organization for next week, Mayor Dickerson, to talk to them about where they had implied that they wanted us to hold a town hall and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to work all that stuff out and may come back with some updates other organizations also working on Biscayne Bay health issues.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Elizabeth, what organization is it?
It's, do you know Laura Reynolds? She's with Conservation Conceptions. It's the name of the organization.
No.
But they said Friends of Biscayne Bay is who they were representing.
Okay, well, I mean, there's this, there's about a dozen organizations that would all, are all pulling together in that direction under the Ocean Conservancy leadership. So seems like we should maybe hear about that.
I assume it's in line with that. But they had asked us to hold a town hall on this. So I figured it would be better just to have a meeting with them and see whether they had more specific asks or recommendations that we could bring in front of the task force.
Well, yeah, and I mean, and there's already like the Miami-Dade wants us to do community meetings, which we're talking about starting in January, since now we're in the holiday season. The Conservancy, as part of that, is already talking about that with them and with Pelican Harbor. So there's already stuff there's a lot of stuff kind of in the edge, that would satisfy that's already in motion, potentially.
Okay.
So
great. Yeah, I can mention that to her as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they want to come talk, we've already invited talk to Katie Hageman's group about speaking in January, and also, we've talked to waterkeepers about the possibility of having them share some of their science, although that wasn't really firmed up. So I think we can set up a series of meetings and then invite whoever we want to come talk, because I think there's a lot of people, I'd like to have the septic to sewer scientists come talk too. So
agreed. Okay, great. So we can circle back on that at our next meeting as well.
Yeah.
Okay, just being conscious of time, and I know this relates directly to our next agenda item. Should we move to the LMS updates? Is that a good segue, Kristen, or do you have more to add?
For time purposes, let's say that's what we're doing, because I'm just going to follow on to what Hugh.
Right. Which, by the way, thank you so much, Hugh, for that. That was incredibly helpful. And I look forward to reading the website again. I very much appreciate that on a personal and professional level.
Thank you. Should I keep the screen sharing up, Kristen, in case we need to refer to it, or do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, you sure. It gives us something pretty to look at. So just from an LMS point of view, so we have a meeting coming up tomorrow that includes Mayor Nickerson and Hugh and myself and Orlando from our engineering firm, and Christia, village manager. And we're gonna look at what, I'm sorry, am I missing somebody else? Oh, and Adam. And
right. Robert, is Robert Uano going to be there?
He was invited. I'm not sure if he's accepted.
Yeah, okay.
But the idea was that we want to look at what's on, this is the next step off of my initial conversation with Christia and Orlando about LMS. So we're going to quickly review what's on the current LMS, and then we're going to talk. Hugh is going to bring a version of what he just presented to you guys in front of this working group for the LMS. So the thing that I want to put into the record here that I think is really important, and we just had, we've had practical experience with it, is that all of a sudden, it's not all of a sudden, but it feels all of a sudden, there's some urgency behind tackling some of these items in the village that we've talked about for a while, but now all of a sudden there's both an escalation, and we had a lot of nuisance flooding this season, but also, as Hugh mentioned, a lot of organizations at the state and county level are looking at the Little River right now, and it feels to me like there's going to be some quick forward movement, and it's really important that the village and the residents of the village, A, get up to speed on it from a knowledge point of view, and B, get organized in terms of having a seat at that table. So in terms of the LMS, Hugh already mentioned the pumps, which are currently in our LMS project plan, but that there are a few other things which have come up that we're going to talk about tomorrow that we want to put on the record here for you guys also. The first is to underline what Hugh said about the sanitary issue. just because we're seeing nuisance flooding right now doesn't mean that it's not something we have to take really seriously, because it's going to cause septic systems to fail. We already have 2 septic systems on my block which had to have attention after the most recent round of flooding. I have 2 other neighbors that are having huge problems with water in their foundation adjacent to their septic systems. So even though we have been talking a lot about nuisance flooding, and we know, like we're developing a plan for dealing with it, we're learning to live with it, we're talking about the storm drains, like underneath that, what's really important to not lose sight of is the fact that every time on these low-lying streets we have nuisance flooding, we have a public health risk because of the septic systems that are not engineered on these blocks. So we want to talk about that as part of LMS, and given the timing of septic sewer and the fact that these stretches of the river, of the houses on the river, are not actually, I think, Omar, I haven't sat in on a public works conversation recently, but last time I checked, they're not actually in the project plan until the 3rd phase, I think, which means it's several years off potentially. And so we may need to address or talk about possible subsidies for these houses along the river, because almost all of them should right now have engineered septic systems, and there are not very many of them that do. So that's about a $12,000 bill per house. And I think we need to talk about what that means. We also want to talk about, as Hugh mentioned, seawalls, limited seawalls in certain areas to protect the village to make sure that the water that's going through the canal continues to flow, because we do have neighbors along the river that have natural banks. Adam is one of them. I have neighbors here on this block that have natural banks. So, that has implications. And then, Hugh, is there anything else? It was just like emphasizing the fact that we want to do studies on the pumps and the efficacy of the pumps, right?
Yeah, I think, well, 2 things quickly on the septic sewer. I mean, we are talking probably about 80 or 90 households that are going to have to essentially spend that money to fix, re-engineer their septic systems. So that is an issue. But the other big thing for me, and I don't know how to make a pitch for it in the meeting tomorrow, but it's really essential. And that is, there's so many aspects of this that involve, what's been learned by hydrologists, by flood people, by everybody in other areas. So, for example, over in Larchmont, because that's county land, they were able to do things, and it was discussed at some of the workshops, or the planning workshops for the C7. But we critically need access to data they have on what their pumps do. Even though the situation is different, there are things we don't know. So I mean, kind of my concern in very often the village has a very clear idea of something needed. Okay, we need a storm drain here. So, they dust off their plans of how you build a good solid storm drain. But we're talking about things here that depend on water flow through the aquifer, that depend on these other pumps and things that are being done in the river. I mean, even in our 2 proposals for the pumps in the LMS, it says the specification of this and how it affects our roads will be determined by the water levels projected by the Water Management District for future C7 canal drainage, and their proposals to let water levels go way higher, for example. Those are all things that we can't just go out and do something necessarily trusting in one engineering company. They, they have to be willing, and I'm sure they will be, just as actually the same company did before in getting these pumps in, reaching out to the district. I think everything we've heard says that all these different agencies are really anxious to help us out on these planning and proposals.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So we have on the LMS right now, we have these 2 pumps. All these other like great projects that you guys are talking about, how do we get those on the LMS? Is that what the meeting tomorrow?
Well, it's
begin to
like,
discuss?
What do we need to add to the LMS? So the way the LMS works is that, you have plans sitting there and you kind of have some basic description of what they are. But, and Hugh can probably clarify this more than me, but at a certain point, if those get escalated and funded, we have to like have a plan in place for them really quickly. So it's not like we have to pay the engineering company right now to draft us a storm drain for sure.
I'm so sorry. Can you say that again? My internet cut out.
Sure.
I apologize.
So just that, yes, we're going to talk about, I think we're going to make sure that what we have on there is correct for what we need right now, what we know from ETA and everything else. And also, are there other things we want to add in there? Because for the same reasons that I talked about, there being momentum and attention being paid to this basin, if that accelerates and we suddenly get funded for something, we need to be able to have a plan for it, like really quickly. And we also need to be able to have matching funds for that too. So we want to make sure that the plans that we have that are moving up quickly are the right plans, and that we also have a discussion about what we're going to do if suddenly we get the word that something's been funded. Like, how are we going to A, make sure the plan's in place, and B, make sure we've got funding to match.
Yes.
But the only thing that we would get funding for right now are the 2 projects on the LMS, because we haven't submitted anything else. Right.
Right. But
I could jump in here, Kristen.
Yeah, go ahead, Hugh. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The thing is, funding for the LMS is very chancy. It only happens when this money comes through, so it can do big ticket items, but there's all kinds of other ways to get funding. And like in Christia's list, I haven't looked at it in detail, but there are other programs we apply to, and most particularly, it hasn't been so much recently, but our lobbyists and our people in Tallahassee are also putting in to the legislature for special appropriations and needs and earmarks or whatever. Now, in recent years, the governors have tended to veto those, but those are other things that are there. And even at the LMS meeting today, I was reminded that there are other different programs that are going on which are not with the LMS process, but which county emergency management controls. Like, for example, the flooding, repetitive loss flooding thing they're going to be asking about the village. I don't believe that's LMS, it's something else. And then finally, I think if this big C7 thing goes through with a brick, it was always presented not just as replacing and putting pumps in the S27, but looking, sort of looking at how all the system works together, and this is where our 2 big pumps, are not so much for the benefit of us. They will benefit of us, but they also tremendously benefit hundreds of thousands of people in North Dade that live in the basin, because they will reduce our risk and enable the district to get more water down the canal where it's flooding upstream. So a lot of stuff way outside the LMS.
So, but just, and this is not a but, this is an and. So just to kind of bring it back down to earth here for a second for the context of this meeting and for this group.
Right.
So there's some like kind of rubber meets the road types of things we have to talk about with the LMS just from a practical point of view. Like, how's the village going to manage this? How does this fit into what the county is working on, and how does this fit into the potential appointment of a new Bay officer, like the larger context of the county, right? Can we leverage any of that? Can we plug into that? But just on it, for the purposes of this resilience committee and for the village council, it is absolutely critical that we mobilize awareness and education to the residents of the village about this stuff, because it is going to overtake us very quickly if we don't have a cohesive plan, and also if we don't I mean, when I say to residents along the river, well, the reason you need to pay attention to this is it's possible that you could get a 10-foot seawall. It's possible that we could get flooding. It's possible that you might have to raise your septic system in the next year or two. Like, these are all real possibilities, and I think that we have to figure out how to create an education plan and a communication plan to try to get everybody in the same boat. Because these are, I mean, I'll be honest, like, I've been thinking about this and we've been talking about this for a long time, and I'm a current resident on the river, and I get really overwhelmed thinking about how all these pieces are going to come together, because it feels so like hodgepodge-lodgy about, because we don't have a cohesive county plan, we don't have a cohesive basin plan, we don't have a cohesive, you know what I mean? Like, we're just homeowners on the river trying to figure out how to deal with this in the context of all this other stuff that's much larger than us. So for the context of this committee, I think in a really practical way, we have to figure out how to mobilize for the best outcome for the village, knowing what we know right now about all this stuff. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just say really quickly that is Chair Carpenter still on? I think she's not here with us anymore. Vice Chair Fruitstone, you'll have to run the rest of the meeting until she comes back, Vice Chair. But yeah, absolutely, Kristen. Like, again, you know, we'll talk about more about this tomorrow, I think, when you know, all of us are there. But I absolutely agree with what you're saying. It's difficult because, you know, there's so many different moving parts. All right, so when you have so many different moving parts and different organizations, it's hard to find sometimes so many different organizations and different moving parts all finding the one thing they need to start with. It's like everybody wants the same thing, but then it's like what everybody wants in these different organizations and things like that is tweaked a little bit to where everybody wants the same thing in the end, but then everybody wants to start in like a location. And I don't mean physical location, I just mean like everybody wants to start with something that's a little bit different from a different, the next organization. And they want to start and they have a view of things that's a little bit different from the next organization. So that's, you know, there's always an upside, but there's always a downside to not having, you know, centralized organizations that where you have a body that controls everything. As far as the what you were saying earlier, which I was always in agreement with the seawall, you know, before you moved in, when I first got on, this is 11 years ago, almost 12 years ago, when I first got on the council, we were going through the whole thing with the seawall, and what ended up happening was, and you know, it might be different now, but what ended up happening was that we wanted to fix all the seawalls, and then it was difficult because we couldn't find the money for it in there where we could fix a good part of the seawall. It was a distinct number of houses. And what ended up happening was there were certain, and through the funding, there were certain individuals that we had to use to build the seawall, and the residents didn't like what the seawall would have been. Because there were some residents that themselves could afford a seawall that was like a better seawall. But the way the state was giving us the money was that it had to be a consistency seawall. but there would be a resident here and then like a resident 3 houses this way that was like, well, no, I'll build my own seawall that's a better seawall than what the government is going to give me. And eventually it just scrapped the whole program. And then after that, Obama was out of office, and then that type of funding for like environmental and green projects and things like that started to just go away after Obama left office. But Vice Chair Fruitstone, you have to run the meeting until Chair Carpenter gets back.
I believe Chair Carpenter is back.
I believe she's back.
Oh, and
Oh, no.
she's gone.
She just left.
She's back.
She's back.
Okay, there you go.
She has a bad connection.
Yeah, it's hard when you're in the mountains. We have a house
sorry,
in
guys.
North Carolina. It's very unstable sometimes, the internet.
Yeah, I've been working out of the house for 3 days and it's been fine. So apparently today is the day that it stops working.
It's stop and go.
I apologize.
Can I say something quickly?
Of course, go ahead.
Yeah. So I totally agree with you, Mayor Dickerson, about all the different forces that pull together and everything else, and everybody's trying to reach a solution and you don't know where it's going. But I will say that I think we do have one advantage we need to exercise, which is, I think, first place, the County Resilience Office with Jim Murley, sort of in coordinating different things, that is the most, to me, powerful entity. Partly because everything else is so fragmented, as you say, but I think partly also he will be much more in sync with the new mayor coming in and everything else. But the thing about that office is,
I'm doing well. How are you?
They really like what we're doing in El Patel, and not just now. They like what's been going on in the river for the past 20 or 30 years. All kinds of people now want to study us because we're the people that know how to do resilience. Well, the only reason we know that is A, we've been doing it for years, and B, our backs are against the wall.
Yeah, I mean, that I think is the kind of the great irony, is that we're just aware of what we need to do. It's not like we actually have the solution, but we at least are having the conversation.
But I think Murley and Katie are a tremendous resource. I thought it was really interesting the day of when we did the King Tide Day. Kristen, you organized, right, a little breakfast for everybody who was going out to get samples. But who showed up at Murley and Katie and two of their people? I mean, the FIU people, I think there was one person, but, they're just tremendously interested in what we're doing. And I think they know that we're key, and that we're kind of representing the collective values they think are needed to make this work. I mean, I remember one day at the, I think 4 years ago in the C7 planning thing, and they had all these consultants. It was the day that Mayor Cubillos was there and gave a wonderful speech, and it was the day that we'd had the river cleanup, and this crew of Dutch consultants we're using the maps we prepared, and and it's like somebody said, why have this big interagency coordination in inner city? It's just not going to work unless you start in a neighborhood and work with people who are working with other people around. I mean, and this was like the top consultant guy saying that, like, guys, start with this, but, we got to really make use of it. Anyway, sorry.
I agree with you. And I think that Kristen's 100% right when she's talking about the momentum that that's going on right now. And a lot of things in life, man, is timing, and you really have to take advantage of it, because then if it passes you by and you had a chance, you'll always remember that, and you'll always kick yourself for that. So we have to take advantage of this time, and we do have a county mayor right now that really believes in that. I had dinner, not dinner, I had lunch with her last week. We have another, she put me on her mayor's coalition. We have another lunch scheduled, myself, her, and 2 other mayors on Friday coming up, this upcoming Friday. So, and she's really big with the environment and things like that. So, you know, at least the county level, hopefully we won't be getting any more. There were a lot of things that got vetoed at the county level when it came to environmental situations.
Yeah.
Well, great, guys. I just want to make sure we still have a few more things to hit today, and it's 5:05. So is there anything else on this before we move on? No, I see Hugh shaking his head. I can't see Kristen, but
I'm muted.
okay.
So no, we'll report back, right? We're gonna have a pretty practical meeting tomorrow. But I do want this group to think about, like I said, I think we have an opportunity January, February, March to, you know, let's put together some of these community meetings. I would like to propose that we do like 3 community meetings going into the river cleanup, with the express goal of trying to mobilize our community and just educate about what is in front of us so that we can try to build some of our own momentum to counter what I think is happening in the larger environment. So we'll stop there.
Yeah.
And Kristen, will you remind me again who is attending the meeting tomorrow?
So it's myself, Adam and Hugh, Christia Alou, the village manager, Orlando, our engineer,
Our mayor.
and Omar, Mayor Nicholson.
Perfect. Okay. Awesome. Thank you, guys. We'll definitely look forward to an update on that. Moving on to H5, next Sustainability and Resiliency Task Force meeting, Wednesday, December 16th. Mayor Nicholson noted that this is actually the day after the next full council meeting. So what are everybody's thoughts on that?
Yeah, there you go. That's all.
I don't think we have anything going on that we need to send to the council that we aren't sending right now. So I'm not sure that it's an issue, but that's my 2 cents.
Right,
Hugh,
I agree.
Hugh, we can see your screen, so you might want to stop sharing.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, I agree. Seems like, Kristen, do you feel the same way? Yes. Okay, great. So we'll go ahead and leave the next task force meeting for Wednesday, December 16th. And then as of right now, Mayor Nicholson, I know we need the text notification service update on the next agenda for Member Valencia to update us on. And then an update, it would be great from Kristen and Hugh about their meeting, or the meeting that you guys are having tomorrow. So if those 2 things could go on the agenda, that'd be great. And we can move on to unfinished business, which I know we have a few things on. The first being review and update of notes and open items by Member Kirk. Well, I guess I can't move that. I missed my chance to move that. So we'll do that. We'll do that first, and then I'll hit the other 2 points. Member Kirk, what do we have open?
Well, actually, most of these are the other items on here. Question on the fertilizer ordinance. I don't know if you want to address that now or if you want to wait until a little later.
The next, yeah.
Okay.
So
ethics training courses was here. I know that was also added as an item for new business. So we're all doing well. The village-wide communication tool we've talked about, and LMS funding. So the ones that I have that are open, either we have talked about or we're going to talk about. So
perfect. Thank you, Member Kirk. Okay, so we'll jump right into I2 then, which is the fertilizer ordinance update. Mayor Nicholson and I received an email from Attorney Geller, and he is looking into the issue. I believe they have some medical issues going on right now, so we're going to have a meeting next week about that, hopefully early in the week when he has had a chance to look at that, and I'm hoping I'll have an update, an official update for next meeting. So Mayor Nicholson, if you don't mind adding that to the agenda preemptively as well, that would be great. That jumps us, thank you. That jumps us right to I3, which is the ethics training. And I can summarize that, or Mayor Nicholson, you can give us a quick update. I think we all saw that.
You can summarize it, Madam Chair.
Okay. Yes, so did everybody get the email from Mayor Nicholson about the ethics training on Friday, the December 11th? Is that, I think that was the date. I registered, so is everybody any issues with everybody attending that? We're good? Kristen, you're good?
I haven't seen the actual time of that.
Yeah, tell me again, when is the time?
I believe it was December, let me pull up my calendar, December 11th from 9:30 to 1:30. Let's see, government, 9:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Yes, on December 11th.
And just so you know, when you do the Zoom invite, it extends it to 2:30. I don't know if they're just adding time, but that's what's on the actual invite.
Do you know if there's a makeup or they're recording it that I can do it later?
So, Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, please.
So when I sent the email, Madam Vice Chair, I thought about you. I thought about Madam Chair Carmen. I thought about her because I know that some of us do have daytime jobs, right? So you guys have daytime jobs. So what I did write in it, and I don't know, Madam Vice Chair, if this would suffice for you. What I did write in it is that you can put it on, let it run if you want to, and because this is the problem. So the problem is that they offer it about twice a year, at the most. A lot of times it's once a year. It's usually right after the elections because they know everybody needs it right after the elections, and usually that's it for the whole year. Sometimes they may offer like a makeup session twice a year, but the makeup session would be the same thing. The makeup session is during the day. It'll be it's never on a Saturday or Sunday. It's always a work day, and it always starts around 9 o'clock in the morning. So the makeup session would be the same thing. So it really wouldn't make too much of a difference. And that's why I put that other option that we probably shouldn't talk about too much, but that's why I put that other option in the email for individuals like you, Madam.
They send a transcript, or they send
so
or can you request a copy of the recording? Do you know through?
Maybe we'll do that. I don't know. Nobody's ever asked that. I'll ask.
Since it's through Zoom.
It's through Zoom.
You know, they may be recording it. Is that something that I can request when I register?
No, there's no room to write anything like that. I'll reach out to the League of Cities. And ask them about that.
I mean, it would benefit people because you might miss something anyways if you want to really be clear.
The problem would be, though, if you wanted a transcript, you would still have to at least have something open during the whole time during the meeting.
And I'm totally okay with that.
They don't give transcripts in lieu of attending. You have to attend. I need you guys to go from bell to bell because they're clocking that time. You guys, and after it's over, they'll take all those names down and they'll send me all of your certificates, most likely, so I can have them on file.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. I'm gonna any other. Well, I have one other thing in.
The last one was COVID. Sorry, the last item there was COVID.
I think that's for new business. So I'm just gonna hit one other thing in unfinished business before we get there. We've talked a lot about septic to sewer conversion, and I know that the village manager gave us a brief update on that when she updated us on the resiliency sustainability efforts that the city has already been involved in. Would it be possible to get a more detailed update on the septic to sewer conversion that we're already involved in and the limitations and potential for expansion on that, Mayor Nickerson?
Yeah, I mean, what type of things are you kind of inquiring about, Chairperson Carpenter? Just overall, just in general, like more details in general about what's been happening?
Yes, so I'm just being relatively new, am not very well versed on how we got to where we currently are with the septic to sewer conversion and why particular areas, why not particular areas. I know we have an order established, just kind of an overview of that whole program.
Yeah, I'll have her write something. So the reason why we're saying the station and the pumping station is going to be placed at Horace Mann, and so that's why the first
west side
will be Northwest 4th. Because it's going to tie right into that pumping station, but we need everything to kind of start from.
So, go ahead. So I just have a lot of questions on it. So I don't know if I should just ask you them now or, you know, but where does the pump to, and does that pump then service the rest of the village as we expand out?
Yeah, so that pump will pump the whole west side.
Okay.
Northeast Second is and another reason why it's going to start on where it's starting on that side of Horace Mann, the west side of Horace Mann, is because we had to start it according to the way we got it for the amount of money that we got it for, which was a discount, is that we had to start it according to the price of the properties that were there. Because, for example, for some reason, the price of the properties that were there are much cheaper than it was on the east side. And being that's the case, we got money according to we were able to claim that we needed because
Kristen, yeah, you're unmuted.
No, you're good.
So what maybe just because I don't want to, if everyone else is already familiar with this, I'm happy to. Okay, I was gonna say I'm happy to just reach out to.
I know all about it, so I can go
directly.
forever. Well, but to put it short, it's because of the price, and those properties don't. The property value wasn't as much as the east side, and because of that, we were able to get it started there for a cheaper price because we were able to claim a what's the word I'm looking for, like a hardship.
Hardship.
We were able to claim hardship, so we were able to start it and get everything for much cheaper. The reason why part 2 is on Northeast Second is because of the business corridor.
Sure. Okay.
Makes sense, and then so that goes like that.
Okay. Thank you. That's really helpful. Honestly, just out of my own newness, I just have I just have a lot of questions about the process. Let me ask the group, does it make sense for me to just speak to the village manager? You know, maybe I set up a meeting with her to get up to speed on that, or does everybody here kind of want an update on or some background on the septic to sewer conversion?
Oh, Madam Chair, I'd love if you spoke to the village manager and then brought out the salient points back to us.
Okay.
And just said, hey guys, here's what I found out. Here's how we got here. Here are the big issues. Here's the sequence. Whatever you find out, I think you can summarize it relatively rapidly.
Okay.
And I think that might be the best use of, that way you get your answers done. And then some of them might be, okay, now that I found it out, it's not a big deal. I don't need to share that. I just, it was some curiosity you had. Versus others where you might say, people should know this.
Okay, does that work with everybody?
It works, and I would be curious to know, because there was a time where I wasn't going to council meetings, and so there may have been changes to the actual plan from the initial establishment of what they were doing with the sewer system plan, and so I would benefit from what the points that they're going to bring out for you, because again, there may have been changes already to it.
I think the upshot, I think to summarize all this, we should just have a thorough report on the status of the septic to sewer project. We haven't really had that yet, right? As a committee.
If I could just.
Right. Yeah, Mr. Gladwin, go ahead.
Yeah, the other thing is it also connects to issues like when they put in sewer lines in the roads, they have to tear up the streets.
Right.
And some of those streets in the west side are still destroyed from Irma, from salt water underneath. So, it does connect to other things, and whether we're going to change the streets to make them more flood adaptable and stuff like that too. So in one sense, we have a plan that we had. On the other hand, it's yet another thing that has to fold into all these others, things that are going on.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great point. Those are some of the questions I had about the logistics and construction, all that kind of stuff. Kristen, go ahead.
So I'm sorry, I meant to raise that during the LMS conversation. Resurfacing the roads and raising the roads are two things that we're going to at least raise on the call tomorrow. And a really practical note, Omar, I don't know if you're aware, but there is a massive pothole on 86th Street that has opened up since the ETA flooding. Like, axle braking. I went and I put a cone on it 2 nights ago. It's different than the one that's been plaguing us. But it's really starting to get dangerous. So I just wanted to raise it for the public record here. Like, we're reaching a point where 86th Street is really starting to fall apart between North Miami Avenue and Northeast 2nd Ave.
And it's not just a matter
Northwest,
of
rather.
repaving. It's not just a matter of repaving it.
The pothole is around 86 and where?
It's between North, I don't know what the house number is right there, but it's between it's between Northwest 2nd Avenue and North Miami Avenue. That's that long block where First Avenue doesn't penetrate to 86th Street. And it's down a little farther towards the Zen Center over there.
Yeah, that whole street is cracked up, and
It's
all
really
the flooding.
a
It's
mess.
the worst conditioned street in the village.
Okay. Yeah, I have stuff coming up with potholes in the December meeting, actually. So.
Okay. Yeah, I think that all of that stuff, you know, we don't want to redo a road and then find out we need to tear it up to run sewer lines or power lines or something like that. So.
Yeah, Madam Chair, that's part of the whole report that the manager will give you, because we discussed that when we first started the sewer conversations. We discussed all of that about what to do, when to do it, and we discussed about the raising the streets and street repair, and we said, look, you guys, once we do these different sections, whatever you need done. We already said whatever you want done with those streets, make sure you do it while we're laying out the stuff of the sewer, so that it can be done.
I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so maybe honestly, after kind of hearing everybody's thoughts, it seems like it might make more sense to have the village manager, just if she has the time, you know, either write up a report for us to read, or I think maybe writing it up would probably be the best. To Kristen's point. Is that something that we could ask her to do, Mary Nickerson?
I'll talk to her and ask her.
Okay, and I'm happy to. I'm also very open to just having a one-on-one meeting with her if that's easier for her. Whatever combination of those things work.
Would be easier for her, just time-wise, but it's up to the task force. Does the task force want the chair to talk to her and take out, you know, what she says, or do you guys want a written report? If you guys want a written report, you're gonna have to give her a little bit of time, you know.
Well, again, I don't see this as something that 2 weeks is going to make a difference. That's just my opinion. I would suggest that since Chair Carpenter has some specific questions, that she interact directly with the village manager to make sure those questions are addressed in the village manager's presentation, summary, whatever report. That would be my suggestion.
Okay, that works with me. So I'll reach out to her directly then, Mary Nickerson. So you don't need to do anything on that. Okay, great. So that's all the unfinished business. I'm going to move on to new business, and we have COVID as the update on that. So I will open the floor up to Member Kirk, because I believe this is your addition to the agenda, or I can kick it off. Oh, you're muted.
It was the reason why I wanted it added, or at least minimally discussed, is the chief has repeatedly notified us of an upcoming expected surge that's even worse than what we are currently having. So from a resiliency perspective, is there anything we need to do, anything that we can do to mitigate it? Or is this just be aware the storm is coming, you know, and simple notification? So to some extent, I'd ask the chief what actions we could take or what support we could provide to assist in this.
Thank you. I gave a report today to the day chiefs, and I started off with this, you know, they have a number of committees, and mine unfortunately starts off with doom and gloom. This has been predicted. It's to a point now that the White House task force has gone as far as telling the local health departments throughout the country. They're basically on your do the right thing of what needs to get done, regardless of what state and local governments are saying. Now, you can read any way you want in between the lines on that, but it seems that a lot of things aren't being done properly for whatever reason, and I'm not here to get into that. I will say that it's been predicted. I will say that there's no doubt in my mind that I know for sure on the 13th of November, there was a spike, and that came from Halloween. Halloween's basically an outdoor holiday. Here it rained a little bit, so it might have spiked a little bit here because people took their things inside. Flying out on Thursday wasn't a big deal. However, coming back on Sunday probably was. So that being said, by mid-December, you're going to have a massive spike across the country. It's coming. I know the vaccines are coming. They're pushing something out. England's coming out next week. We should be having something to start off with in the next, by the end of December, January for sure. CDC yesterday came out with their recommendations. I had submitted to the other chiefs. I had a working document from the CDC how that's going to play out with getting these shots distributed. I've talked to the health department in terms of the PODs or points of dispersal where they're going to have them. I know the healthcare workers are coming first, the doctors for sure, the elderly in the homes for sure. They'll go down then obviously to first responders, things along those lines. The masks, continue with that. I think it's just the vigilance. I will say on a positive note, because I review the CDC every day, flu throughout the country is minimal. Now, I say that because the things that have kept people keep you from catching COVID, I think are working with the flu. I asked a couple of people, and this is not scientific by any stretch of the imagination, how many colds you usually get a year? 3, 4, sometimes 5, depends, right? How many did you get this year? And I'm telling you, most people say, you know what, I've gotten less colds this year than I have because of a consciousness. They're avoiding people, they're not getting close, they're washing their hands, they're wearing the mask. Somewhere along the way, it went off the rails that this became politicized about wearing masks. Masks do work. If I was to sit in the room with all of you and sneeze, the first thing you're going to say is cover your mouth. Well, why? For the same reason why you need to wear a mask to avoid a virus. And I think in the areas that this is more prevalent, that people are wearing the mask, it won't get hit as hard. But you can't put a happy face on something like this. It's been predicted, it's coming, and they thought it would be coming from a lower level. It's coming where the level's up here now. And I suspect it's been climbing every day, the positivity rate since Thanksgiving. I suspect it's going to go close to 14 or 15% by the 15th of December. This is what's going to be. Darkest before the dawn. The vaccines will come out. That's not the end all. They will help. This will end it when everybody gets it, or we get enough people getting it, the vaccine, but it's going to take time. It's not going to go away right away. And you got the holidays coming up. You got Christmas coming up. People are going to be indoors across the nation, and they're still going to travel unless they ban the flights from coming. It's going to happen again at the end of December, and it's just going to get progressively worse. And I think we just need to be ready for it. What can we do differently? I mean, this is a long answer to a question you asked, but what can we do differently? I'm not sure much of anything. I don't subscribe to the fact of staying in the house all day. I just think you need to be conscious about it. And I would avoid restaurants. I certainly would avoid, and the malls too now. You're going to have people shopping. It's just the most inopportune time for this to be happening where it's spiking. I mean, I can't say it. It's the perfect storm. And it's been predicted by much smarter people than I. So
Chief, basically, aside from encouraging people to wear a mask, is there anything that the Resiliency Task Force here should be actively doing?
I would just say keep people mindful of it. Keep people mindful that there's a spike, that it's a probable spike. I don't want to put panic in people. I'll tell you, it's coming. I think Dr. Fauci and what Dr. Birx said yesterday is very telling to the health departments. And I just think we need to monitor it, not let the rumors run rampant, but if we get some good solid information, CDC, just bring it up to people's attention, and that they're mindful of it, that maybe by being mindful of it, it will keep them from going to the mall. It may keep them from doing A, B, and C. That's just half the battle. I mean, there's other states, and I've been through a few of them, there's other states where they'll tell you it's not even real. And that's unfortunate, but that is the truth. And it's going to be a hard time, but unfortunately, those people that live there can travel here. And with everything else, there's always been the tourists and the snowbirds bringing down the flu every year. And this is a little bit worse, I think. So we'll see I don't know what the government's going to do about it, if anything, but it seems like the higher medical minds want to let the local health departments call the shots and not wait for state and local government to act or not act, as the case may be. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I just wanted to hear an update. That's really what I was looking for from the chief, and I really appreciate him being here. So, thank you.
No, that's great. Thank you, Chief Magnuson. That was very helpful.
What I will do with the stuff that I put out or I receive and give to the day chiefs for the dissemination with their agencies, I can forward it to you all as well. Some are really good articles. It's not going to be any Time Magazine articles or something. It'll be pretty good articles that you can probably pick something out of use. And if I can summarize it, I will, and just ship it off to you.
Thank you so much, Chief, for keeping us updated on that and all your great work on that.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions for Chief Magnuson before we move on to the next? No. Okay, great. That's all on our actual agenda. Does anyone else have any other new business before we move on to good and welfare?
No, I didn't know there would be so many things, Madam Chair, added to, unfinished business, general orders or new business. So what I'll do next meeting, I'll have the review and update from Member Kirk. I'll have that under new business. So that if anything else happens, that'll be the last thing. We can just keep moving it down. So even if we have new businesses, we can move it down and still it'll be the last thing that we go over. So it'll be the last thing.
Yep.
I think I lost you on that. But I heard what you're putting on the next agenda, but I didn't hear what you said, so I'm going to trust you on that. Perfect. Okay, thank you, man.
Remember, Kirk agreed. As long as he agreed, we're good. He gave us the okay, so we're good.
Perfect. You all have my full trust. Perfect. Okay, so nothing else on new business. Good and welfare. Mr. Gladwin, do you have anything, or Chief Magnuson, anything to add? Does the task force have anything to add, or Mayor Nickerson? Okay, great. So hearing no additions, can I get a motion to adjourn today's meeting?
Absolutely. I move we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Only 2 minutes late.
2 minutes late. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Hearing none, the meeting is officially adjourned at 5:32 p.m.
You guys,
thanks everyone. Be safe.
You guys did a wonderful job. We had a full agenda, and look at that. We're just 2 minutes over. Wonderful job, you guys.
We did start 2 minutes late, so in fairness.
Very efficient. Very efficient. You guys take care. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you guys. Have a great day.
Bye, guys.
Bye.